It's been a long, dry, pretty alienating period. And so when the Occupy movement emerged, I also kind of felt my heart come back to life. You know, when we started our meetings, I think I talked to Tony, my partner Tony, about that, who's also involved in Occupy. That I just felt like my heart was open, more open than it had been in the longest time, and even more open than it had been working with people in this community, because we've tried since we moved here in the late 90s to do political work and to help kind of do some coalition building, and I've had some pretty frustrating experiences with doing that in this community. And so when the Occupy movement came, there were folks that I'd seen before and worked with before, and in not very successful ways. And so I was a little leery at first, thinking, oh no, it's just going to be a repeat of sort of some past difficult, frustrating times. I was surprised and heartened by the experience of working even with some people or in situations where it had just been really difficult before, and I wasn't experiencing the same difficulties in the context of the Occupy movement organizing. There's just more room. There's more room, I think, for people to breathe. I think the processes by which we organize ourselves in general assemblies with consensus decision making and using consciously and being consciously committed to direct democracy as a model. I don't know. It seems to be a welcoming space for many different kinds of people, is my experience. Hopefully, potentially for many more different kinds of people. I mean, but it can handle diversity. And being a Chicana who's been involved in movement activity for a long time, I've seen, and in people's efforts to just to really construct perspectives for social change. Oftentimes, diversity takes a back seat, and until it becomes attention, and then people feel like they have to deal with it. But it feels like for me that we carry this commitment. We've been carrying it from the beginning. I feel like it's at the core of if we have principles in the movement, it's at the core of that. And maybe it's, when I think about the word solidarity, and when working as a labor activist, since that's how I got radicalized, solidarity is a really important term and concept and legacy. And I started organizing, oh goodness, I was 22, 23, and when I got my sort of first real substantial job working in a community mental health clinic in Northeast Portland, and we ended up organizing a union. And I had no experience, I had no sense of history I had no sense of labor history, I had no sense of social movement history. A little bit. I mean, my dad always had Cesar Chavez on the wall because, we're a Mexican family, and he's an icon. But we never talked about Cesar Chavez. He was just on the wall. So, but when I began to get involved in labor organizing, and began to meet a much wider community of folks who were involved in community organizing, changed my world, altered my perspective down to the roots, down to my roots, and I started to imagine that I could participate in making the world different, and I had not. That was totally enlightening to me, and that I was doing it collectively. Because especially when you're organizing a union, it's all about collective decision making. I mean, you can't even organize a union if you don't get everybody on the same page. So it was a good way to step into kind of being radicalized into social movement activism. And from then on, I've carried it as the core. It's kind of what enlivens my spirit, and I haven't, and I'm 50, and there's a long stretch there, as you know, that it's been pretty dry. It's been pretty, people kind of hunkering down, just trying to take care of themselves and their families, and not necessarily that people are only self-interested, but that we live in a set of conditions right now that really inhibits folks from doing, for most folks, from doing much more than just taking care of their day-to-day needs, their kids, paying the rent or paying the mortgage, having enough money for groceries, you know, maybe a little bit extra so you can do some other stuff with your family or with your friends, and